Hi everyone, this video is to introduce the next chapter, which is chapter 6. And just initially we're going to start very basic, going back to our unit circle. So if you remember, I mentioned that there were two ways to measure an angle. And we've learned how to measure things in degrees, but there's another way to measure an angle, and that's in radians. And so this is where, on your calculator, where if you click mode, it had degree and radian mode. Now we're going to look into what a radian is. So degrees has that symbol. You guys know what a degree symbol is. And radians is kind of interesting because you can either use the symbol RAD to stand for radians, or you actually don't need a unit. It's kind of unitless. So you don't need to write any unit afterwards, which makes it all the more important that you put a degree symbol on your degrees. Otherwise, I'm going to think that you mean radians. And so if you just put 66, that's 66 radians, not 66 degrees. So just be careful with that. So again, like I said, we're going to visit the unit circle. So if you have your unit circles, pull it out. If you don't have your unit circles, then go to the website www.embeddedmath.com, and you should be able to find a blank unit circle and print one out. So I'm just going to go to that unit circle. Okay, so I've taken the time to fill in the unit circle with what you should have already, and now let's talk about radians. So just like 0 degrees is 0 in degrees, we're going to make that 0 in radians. So that's 0 radians. And another thing that you need to know is that in one circle, so in one full rotation, 360 degrees, we're going to say that this is 2 pi radians. So one equivalence that you need to know is that 360 degrees is equivalent to 2 pi radians. Now we're going to use this to fill in the rest of the unit circle using our fraction knowledge. So if 360 degrees is 2 pi and 180 degrees is half of 360, well, if this one's 2 pi, this one's going to be 1 pi. And I'm going to change my pen. Actually, no, I'm not. So with that, we're going to divide this up in fractions. So if 180 is pi, 90 will be pi over 2. So if this is 0, pi over 2, pi, think of it as 0, 1/2, 1 pi, 0, 1/2, 1. The next one would be 1 1/2, which is 3 pi over 2. So now we're going to go on to our other fractions. And if this one's pi over 2, what's half of a half? Hopefully you remember that half of a half is a quarter. So 45 degrees is going to be pi over 4. So let's count by 45 degrees. So we have 1 pi over 4, 2 pi over 4. Well, 2 pi over 4 reduces to pi over 2. The next one would be 3 pi over 4. 4 pi over 4, well that's just pi. 5 pi over 4. 6 pi over 4, which reduces to 3 pi over 2. And then 7 pi over 4. And lastly, 8 pi over 4 is 2 pi. So now we have pi over 4, 3 pi over 4, 5 pi over 4, 7 pi over 4. If you notice, they're all odd numbers because the even ones reduce in their fraction. So now let's fill in the last bit. If we think about 30 degrees, so 180 degrees is pi. If you took the fraction 30 over 180, that reduces to 1/6. In other words, 30 goes in 6 times. So this is going to be pi over 6. So counting by intervals of pi over 6, here's 30 degrees, the next one would be 60 degrees, 1 pi over 6, 2 pi over 6, but 2 pi over 6, a 2 is going to cancel, and we get pi over 3. So 60 degrees is equivalent to pi over 3, or 2 pi over 6. So we have 1 pi over 6, 2 pi over 6, 3 pi over 6, 4 pi over 6, but 4 pi over 6 reduces to 2 pi over 3. 5 pi over 6, 6 pi over 6, 7 pi over 6, 8 pi over 6, 9 pi over 6, 10 pi over 6, which reduces, 11 pi over 6, and lastly 12 pi over 6. So I've reduced them, but hopefully you can see from all the colors, you can count in either sixths, fourths, halves, and it's all just based on fractions of pi. So remembering that just as 360 equals 2 pi, we can also write that 180 degrees equals pi. So we're going to use this. This is actually a conversion. Now that you have the unit circle filled in, we'll talk more about this on Monday, but I just wanted you to get that filled in and kind of understand where these fractions are coming from. So now we're going to convert between radians and pi. So if I start with, let's say 210 degrees, and I want to convert that to radians. We know that there are 180 degrees equal to pi radians. So we're going to get a conversion that in order to convert 2 radians, we're going to multiply by pi over 180. And in order to convert to degrees, we're going to multiply by 180 over pi. The way that I remember this is that whatever I'm trying to convert to is what goes in the numerator. So if I'm trying to convert 2 radians, pi goes in the numerator. If I want to convert 2 degrees, 180 goes in the numerator. So to convert 210 to radians, I'm going to take 210, and I want to go 2 radians, which means that pi is going to go on top, 180 goes in the bottom. And so if you take this and you should be able to do this without your calculator and reduce the fraction. You get 210 pi over 180. Well, let's reduce this fraction. 30 goes in both of those, or maybe right away you see that the 10s cancel, and then 3 goes in that. So you get 7 pi over 6. So 210 degrees is equivalent to 7 pi over 6. Let's do another one. If I wanted to take 330 degrees and convert to radians, I'm going to take 330 degrees, multiply by pi radians. Remember, what I'm going to goes on top, over 180. This is 330 pi over 180. 10s cancel. And then I want to reduce this. Well, 3 goes into both. 3 goes into 33 11 times. 3 goes into 18 6 times. So 330 degrees is equivalent to 11 pi over 6. Well, what if we want to go the other way with this? Sometimes you'll see radians with a unit, and sometimes you'll see them without. So if I just said 5.7 radians, you might see this as just 5.7. If I want to convert this to degrees, I'm going to take 5.7. Remember, whatever I want to go to goes on top. So 180 goes on top over pi. So this is 5.7 times 180 all over pi. Now this one, we're not going to leave the pi like this. You can put this in your calculator. 5.7 times 180. Divide that answer by pi. And you're going to get 326.6 degrees. And here's why that degree symbol is important. If you don't have that, you really mean radians. Notice how there's no unit here. Just to do another one, if I take 7.5 radians and I want to convert it to degrees, I'm going to take 7.5, multiply by, since I want to go 2 degrees, 180 goes on top, pi goes on the bottom, and you're going to get 7.5 times 180 over pi. Putting that in your calculator, you get 429.7 degrees. Okay, so at this point you should have your unit circle filled in, have some idea of where the fractions are coming from, and I want you to do page 348, numbers 5 through 8. So it's only 4 problems. I'll see you all on Monday.